Hi, I'm Laurie Wheeler of WellnessWithin and Spirit Adventure Tours. Thanks for being with me today. I'm really looking forward to bringing some information, but first I'd like to introduce myself. So I am a transformational holistic practitioner, and I've been in my work for over 25 years. I am a receiver, communicator, and also a translator of energy. So that enables me to understand what energy is communicating, to be able to see it, to be able to have a sense of what it's trying to convey. So I work in past life, between lives, and future progressive soul regression. I am a homeopathic practitioner and a medical intuit. So I'm able to read the body and convey what something is that's going on and connect it to where it's coming from, what sets it up, who's involved with it, a lot about the situation. And then I channel and I speak light language. And so I've been involved in energy, like I said, for over 25 years. I am a starseed, and I have roots in numerous other systems. So right now here in my life, I want to tell you a little bit about how I got here. I want to tell you about my story, because we're going to be talking about stories today. And so when I was about 5 years old, I remember being able to speak and communicate with Sananda Jesus. And I did this through my higher self. I would speak to my higher self, and I remember having communication. So at that point, I followed my path pretty closely. I would hear information and I would follow it. And when I was in my mid-30s, back in 1989, I built a house on a particular piece of land in New York State and didn't realize that it was native burial ground. And so the spirits, they had their way with me, I'll say. It was a rude awakening because this was an aspect that I wasn't familiar with. So this was my learning, my classroom. And I also became very ill. I lost my memory, my short-term memory. So I used to have to write a map how to go to town. I was very ill. My whole family was very ill. And so it changed my biological structure also in a lot of ways. And, but with losing my memory, I had no choice but to open up to my intuitive skills and listen more closely to my higher self and become more aware. And I still continue to this day to have a loss of certain memory or short-term memory. But it makes me, it forces me, it pushes me to pay more attention and to hear, to always look to my intuition so that I can hear the information that comes through. So I've been actually taught and trained to communicate with these different spirits and guides and masters and extraterrestrials and interdimensionals and the angels. And I work with something, a particular consciousness, the emissaries of light, and a specific aspect of that being Megalithicon. That's how he's named himself, or it's named itself to me. So my job, lifetime after lifetime, as I understand it, is to go to different planetary systems with the Galactic Star Fleet and teach and learn and extract information to bring to other places, to grow through, and to not only grow through, but to also bring to certain places to help people grow, and so that we can ascend. And I could share many, many stories of many journeys and happenings that has occurred to me. But today I really want to bring to you something that's very important in third dimension, which is perspective and polarity and how that affects our DNA and our story. So the first aspect I'd like to talk about or touch on is polarity. And polarity is these forces, they kind of come in pairs. They're dual pairs and they support each other, and they come by way of let's say negative and positive. That is a polarity. And action and reaction, masculine and feminine, these are all polarities. And in our third dimension, as the Arcturians tell me, this is what drives mankind. We need polarity that moves us toward making change, because it's our nature, our spiritual nature, not to want to carry illusion, but that because we know ourselves as a divine being. So, but we could be a lazy populace if we didn't have polarity. We could just sit back and say, well, that's enough for us. But the fact that it moves us toward to make change. Could you imagine that to know sadness without happiness? It almost doesn't feel like we would understand it the same way. So this is why we have it. It prompts us to increase our awareness. And so the second part I want to talk about, having said that, is our story. So each person has a story, and we contract time after time to come into some type of embodiment or such that where we can learn and grow through. And so when we're what I call between lives, when we leave an embodiment and our spirit moves back out of our soul and we come into between lives, we connect with our counsel, we connect with our master spirit guide, that which has been with us always since the beginning of our time. We sometimes have angels there, and certainly our higher self, us as our higher self is there. And so depending on the maturity of our soul, depends on how much help we actually receive, because those of us that have a much more mature soul, that have done a lot of work, we don't need as much help as younger souls do. You can kind of think of it as an age process, maybe a 5-year-old to a 25-year-old. There's a difference of what is needed to help a person come along in their awareness. And so we embody, and after going through and learning our review, we come back into another embodiment of sorts, and something else begins to happen. A story begins to set up. A lesson begins to set up. Some type of a happening or a situation, or maybe something even in the birth process before we're even born, or societal issues and beliefs set up. But there's some type of a perspective that's in an illusion that sets up in our story. And it sets up a thought for us, a particular distorted perspective. And we hold this part in our animal brain, which is in the back of our head, in the occipital part. And we hold this, and we can carry this time after time, this information, this distortion. And it reminds me of an actual story I'll share with you for a moment. I was doing a journey and a shamanic journey, as I'm a practitioner, and I work with teaching people to come into a sacred space. I call it a sacred particular type of beautiful place that you want to imagine that's very safe and your own special place, a garden maybe. But you can have all kinds of things in it. And one day I asked about a fear, and I asked how to change this fear. And I set up a bench so that when I ask a spirit to come and be with me, we can sit on a bench together. Maybe it's my humanness, but it's the way I set my garden up. And so this particular wise spirit showed up, and I knew it was a wise spirit because it came as a sort of an Asian man with a 5-corner hat, and this would be my symbology of a wise man. And so he came and he answered me with just several words, as masters often do. They don't speak a lot. They almost answer you with a question, but it's food for thought. So he answers me and he says, move the bench. And now I will say that this is probably some of the most profound information, and I've been privy to much information throughout the years, listening to many interdimensionals and angels and masters and such. But this master particularly said it this way so that I would carry this through and think about it time after time, so that I would give it more than just a passing thought, so that I would make it a part of my understanding. And he said, move the bench. And move the bench is about a perspective. It's about changing the perspective that I had about this fear. And so that's up to me to change the perspective. So we store our perspectives, like I said, we store it in our DNA. And this is where our DNA encodes everything. It holds our story. And it depends on what goes on in our life, how it re-alivens itself over and over and over. And so we begin to develop a skip in the record of our story. And now I know that's dating myself, but if you've ever heard a skip in your CD or your record, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can play it and you can exist in it, but it's going to keep coming back up again until it clears, until you change the perspective of it. And so what happens here also is it's there to remind us and help us grow, help us move through it, help us look at life in a different way. And this is what we are doing, coming back time after time after time, and growing through the different levels of our dimensions and growing through our dimensions. It's about looking at things from so many different perspectives so that we learn and grow through it. And so that we can change our story. And when we do, our wound changes, our story changes, and we can change our DNA, and that we're not playing this story time after time. But what happens is, even when we have a story and we haven't changed it in a lifetime, when we go to our between lives, we review. Well, this is what we do in soul regression hypnosis also. We go to a particular story that may be in even another time, and what it has to do with your current time and how it's affecting your current time. So you may have brought something in from that still needs work on, and so you've created another story that may have similarity. And so even some of your pieces, your counterparts, other people, come to help you grow through this story. And so as we're looking at this through a between lives in a hypnosis, we can also change the story there too. So we can look at it, it's all about looking at it in a different way. So I know as an artist, I can stand and look at something this way and see it different, and I can stand this way and see it different, or I can shed light or dark, and it's going to change my perspective. And this is what's going on through life. When you're young and you set up a story, your perspective is different than when we get older. So it is about changing the perspective in order to change the story. And now it's actually been researched. Science finds that there are genes in mice that actually are related to their fear memories. And so this is a proving that we hold this. We also, I believe, it is held in what we call also information in our junk DNA, stores memories and information. And not only our fears, but it holds it from other times also, and what we call the spiritual DNA. And these are regions of our genome that actually carry this. And they're related to phobias and PTSD, but other, like I said, other aspects, other lifetimes that bring our dharma, our capabilities, what we know, who we're connected to from other times. The beautiful aspects of ourselves also are stored here. So it's important to open up these other strands of DNA and communicate, bring the light in so that it can communicate, so that it can illuminate that which has been held quiet in the unknown. And it's fascinating how it affects our DNA. I'm actually working with a scientist who looks at the DNA through his equipment, and because I can see it, we can share information together that is illuminating more about what is going on and what energy is affecting it and how it's affected. So this explains why some people are fearful of things, something that has happened that they have no recollection of. A drowning or a suffocation or falling, or many people feel that they've been burned in another previous time. And most people fall victim to their energy, to their story, to the conditioning that we have to grow through. So I'm going to share a story with you that kind of opens this all up. This is some years ago. It was a woman who was a nurse. She was in her mid-60s, and she was riding a bicycle, and she went head over heels. She hit a gravel patch, and she fell on her back, and she became paralyzed from her neck down. And I was called into the hospital where she was about a week or so after she had hurt herself. And when she was there, I didn't know her personally. A friend of mine asked if I would come and visit because they knew I worked in energy. And what was interesting is that she really couldn't move much of her body. She had very little movement. I think if I remember, she could move some fingers and maybe some toes, but not much movement. And so when I started to work with her, and again, I might just add a moment here that when we're working in energy, we really don't know where we're going to go or what's going to happen. Each story, each happening is very unique and different for that individual. So I didn't know where I would be going, but I was brought into a time, and it was a time outside of 3D actually. And what it was is a pulling back of the dimension and going into this place where this energy was held within herself, and understanding it, that in the moment as the happening occurred, her fear was getting set up. And as that fear got set up, it sort of froze in time. And now I'll say, without explaining too much, those of us that work in soul retrieval know that a part of the soul goes away in order for it to sort of stay safe, while the rest of the being, the rest of the soul, tries to work it through in embodiment. And so in soul retrieval, what we do is we go and we retrieve the part that's gone missing, and we ask for it to return. So in this happening, as this time element and space and time gets pulled apart, there's this frozen aspect, this fear that's held there. And so as I'm working with her, she's telling me as the energy is moving, she's telling me that she sees herself in water and she's swimming. This is what she's actually seeing in her mind, in her energy. And I will tell you, related to this, is that she always had a fear of drowning, of suffocating and drowning. And so this is sort of a twofold happening. Old fear that comes back from maybe another time, and also the fear that she falls over and she can't move. And so working with this energy, she sees herself swimming. She sees a different story, a different perspective. Simultaneously, she's starting to move her arm and her legs start moving. And I can see her, she's moving this mobility like she's swimming. And so she surpasses this fear. Now, the body takes a longer time to catch up, and so it took her some time in the hospital, but she eventually walked out of the hospital. So grateful for that. The beautiful aspect to this is that we can change our story and its energy. And we're all energy. We're all energy. And as Jesus has told me, Jesus Sananda tells me that the miracles that he performed and what he was able to do was because he worked outside of the 3D. Third dimension has gravitational pull. And so miracles, it doesn't happen in the third dimension the way it does when you go outside of this dimension. And so how do we release our stories? How do we change the perspective? Well, I've been working in homeopathy over 25 years, and I know when a substance, an energy of another substance is given that corresponds to the negative in a person, the negative, the physical, emotional, and the mental, and the spiritual, their story opens up and the perspective changes. And so this has taught me about perspective greatly. Also, when I work in regression and hypnosis, we move into the lower brain waves to access hypnosis so that we can put away the mind chatter and go into this place where we can access and listen to and be accepting of the energy that comes to us. So our story, and seeing it a different way so that we can accept it. It's different when somebody tells you it than when you receive it in your own self. It comes all the way through your whole entire being. And there you have the ability to change your story also. So we can do a lot outside the third dimension, but we live in the third dimension and we are working to raise frequencies. And one way we raise our frequency is by changing our story and healing that which we feel is real. And yet some part of us knows it to be a different existence. So by going into the level of where the happening occurs and changing the perspective, we can change and raise our frequency and change the setup of our story. So scientists use light waves to accelerate the supercurrents to access the quantum. And we accelerate energy by accessing and energizing the atoms, the nucleus, the electrons. I've actually been able to see all of this in the energy, and I know for a fact I've seen it and how it moves. It literally moves almost like a disc, I will say. If you've ever put a record on fast speed, it goes around really quickly. Well, it's kind of like this, and all of the atoms and the nucleus and the electrons, they're all in here, and they are changing simultaneously and affecting our DNA. And as this energizes itself, it has the potential to change, and I've seen this. So I know this is how it happens. And it's amazing to be a part of it and to see it and to watch a person change this. So you will know when you're there because you move different. You see it in your mind, it moves different. There's a different speed to it. There's a different pattern of energy to it. It's a different energy. As we know, we have energy of AC/DC and electromagnetic frequencies and scalar waves and quantum, and they're all different wave patterns and movements of energy. And so it takes going into a different frequency and pattern of energy to change this. So I have chosen a guided meditation that will bring you in deeply to access the energy of yourself, your higher self, your body, your energy body. And this particular guided meditation, I'm not going to do it in the here and now, but I am going to give you the link so that you can either listen to it or watch it and listen to me take you into this place. And I walk you into a bit of a hypnosis, into a different brainwave so that we can access this energy. So you have the potential to change your story or to do whatever you want in this particular place. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to tell you what's coming up. I'm doing 2 retreats this year, well, actually maybe 3. The first one is to Hawaii to open up and connect us to our roots of Lemuria. And I lived in Hawaii. It's an amazing energetic place, and to bring these energies in and connect with our roots of Lemuria it has so much to share with us and tell us, these ancient ones. And then I will probably be doing a short retreat up to Blind Frog Ranch in Utah, where Dwayne Ollinger, the owner of Blind Frog Ranch, he's been on multimedia places talking about his story and the extraterrestrials and such that live up there. And I've met numerous ones, and I've had the honor to be and hear of different information that they have to share, and would love to bring you there so that you can also open and access the information that they want to share with us. And then in August, we go to the beautiful, beautiful place of Glastonbury, England, and then right after that we go to south of France. And so we're going to be connecting with the ancient ones that are held in Glastonbury, the sacred place that it is, and then right on to south of France and connecting to the path of Mary Magdalene. And so there's so much information to bring forward, and I would love to share that with you. I will be bringing this forward on my own Roku channel coming up early spring, so keep your eyes open for it, and I will be sending out emails so you can sign up on my website, which is wellnesswithin.net. Be sure to look for these links also that will take you to this guided meditation. And check out my YouTube channel because I will be also bringing some more information there. So thank you so much for coming in today and listening, and that I could just share this little bit of information with you. There's so much more to share, and I really look forward to coming together again. Thank you for being here. And so it is.